Eventually, Dwayne Ross called and gave me the news. Jose, thank you for your interest in our program. Unfortunately, you are not selected in this interview cycle. We encourage you to continue applying as we will be selecting future classes. But wait, there's more. Dwayne Ross continued the phone conversation and said, Jose, if you're interested, we would like to offer you a position as an engineer here at NASA Johnson Space Center. However, this does not guarantee that you will be interviewed, let alone selected during the next selection cycle. If you are interested in applying to become an astronaut, we suggest you get more operations experience, and we believe you can gain this type of experience and knowledge here at NASA. So they gave you a job offer, which I was surprised when I read this. Right. You didn't take it.
Exactly.
Explain why you didn't take it.
I did not take it because I had just arrived to Washington, D.C. on my change of station assignment from Lawrence Livermore Lab. The lab had spent about $25,000 moving my family and I. We had a house rented and everything, lease signed with, and the job was paying for it, but I was working at DOE headquarters down in downtown Washington, D.C., and I had a commitment for 2 years, and I couldn't in good conscience, after being there a couple of months, say, well, I changed my mind. Thanks for spending that $25K. I'm going to Houston now. I didn't want to burn any bridges, not that it was burning bridges, but more than it wasn't the right thing to do. I had made a commitment, and I wanted to fulfill it. So I gave Dwayne Ross a call, and I told him that I respectfully have to decline the offer. But I gave him my story. I told him this is why I feel I cannot do it, and he understood. I figured I'm never going to hear from him again because I turned him down. But lo and behold, the following couple of years, they call again.
1992, once again renewed my application. By now I felt I could fill it out with my eyes closed. For the second time, I was one of the last 100 finalists. Just like the time before, these lucky 100 were invited in groups of 20 to spend a week, go through a series of medical and psychological exams, interviews, and tours of the various training facilities. When NASA decides to let the 100 individuals know whether they've been selected or not, the calls to all 100 people occur within the span of a few hours. It was rumored that if a candidate picked up the phone and the Johnson Space Center director, who was George Abbey at the time, was on the other end, it would be good news. However, if it was the astronaut selection manager, Dwayne Ross, or any other interview panel member, one could almost guarantee it would be a thanks but try again type of call. True to the rumor, when I received the call from Dwayne, it was to tell me that I had been seriously considered, but it was not my year. He then went on to suggest that again, I consider an engineering position at Johnson Space Center. So then you go and talk to your wife, Adelita. Say, may I talk to you for a moment? She said, of course. Something wrong? He said, I want to talk to you about something really important. I have thought about the whole situation with NASA a lot, but before we finalize our decision, I want to confirm something with you. We are getting ready to head back to California, and I'm probably going to get a promotion and a nice raise when I report back to work at the laboratory. That said, I think it's best for me to turn down the job offer with NASA because they offered you another job.
Yes.
Houston is hot and muggy anyways. We'll have less money to spend. And Adelita interrupted me. Honey, if moving to Houston and working for NASA as an engineer is what it will take for you to make your dream come true, then we'll move to Houston in a heartbeat. Boom.
Yeah.
And that was the deal.
Yeah.
So now you accept the job at NASA as an engineer. As an engineer. Not as an astronaut.
No,
I mean, it's still really cool.
Yeah. I'm in engineering and low man on the totem pole.
On January 21st, 2003, we welcomed our fifth child, second baby boy into the world. A few days earlier, on January 16th, 2003, at 9:39 a.m., the Space Shuttle Columbia took off for its scheduled mission with 7 astronauts on board. Columbia was scheduled to land back on Earth on February 1st, 2003 at 7:15 a.m. The orbital maneuvering system engines were turned on for a de-orbit burn. This burn allows the atmosphere to capture the Space Shuttle Columbia and thus begin its re-entry to Earth. Within minutes, the temperature sensor on the left wing's brakes began to show an increase in temperature. It was the first serious indication that something was wrong. At 7:59 a.m., the last words from the Space Shuttle Columbia were transmitted. Understood, but 3 minutes later, Columbia broke apart, raining a field of debris across the northwest parts of Texas and Louisiana. You use a term in here. It's normalization of deviation, and I started thinking about that term and what it means and how it obviously impacted this horrible incident with losing the space shuttle Columbia. But it seems like something that we can do in our own lives. This normalization of deviation. Can you talk about that a little bit? What caused the accident and how that idea of normalization of deviation played into it?
Sure. Well, by that time, I had been there for 3 years at NASA, and I worked myself up to branch chief of the Materials and Processes branch. And this is the engineering branch that does the failure analysis and finds out root causes of failures of materials. And so when the space shuttle disintegrated up in northwest Texas, Louisiana, my group was one of the first groups that were out there picking up the pieces. We were the ones that put the hangar in Florida and outlined the shuttle and brought every piece and forensic evidence and put it all together and did the testing in terms of the materials to find out where the breach occurred. And once we were pretty certain that that's where the breach occurred, which is on the left wing leading edge, which is a reinforced carbon-carbon substrate, hard substrate, we went to Southwest Research in San Antonio, and we built a full-size wing of the shuttle. And then we looked at the image analysis and saw pieces of foam that fell from the tank insulation, that big orange tank, center tank, that fell and hit the left wing leading edge. We found out, we calculated the speed, the size of it, and we replicated that experiment at Southwest Research through a air gun, fired those pieces of foam to the wing leading edge and recreated basically the cracks that occurred, because that's the material that helps on re-entry. You're up to about 2,700 degrees, and the aluminum structure inside, it's aluminum, melts at about 900 degrees or so. So if there's a crack in there, it's going to get in there and it's going to affect the structural integrity of the wing, and that's what caused it to snap and create that catastrophic failure, and pieces all over northwest Texas occurred. And so during all this time, the president had the Columbia Accident Investigation Board formed, and since I was the branch chief, I gave a lot of briefings of the findings. There's a whole teams, hundreds of people that contributed. Certainly not me myself, but I was one of the spokespeople in terms of telling the science part of it. The results of what we measured and all that, and so I got a lot of face time with a lot of people at NASA, and they ended up, they started looking at me and trusting me and all that. We came up with the story of what was the root cause of the failure, which is of course the piece of foam that did. And but shortly thereafter, the following year, they have a selection of astronauts, and I'm again one of the finalists. And this time, when I sit down across the 18 people that are there, I know more than half of them through this accident investigation board. Franklin Chang Diaz is sitting there. Mm-hmm. He's one of the guys. So it's kind of like I come home to family now. Before it was a complete set of strangers, and now everybody knew me. I knew them, and I think my work spoke for itself, and I think that's what finally did it. But unfortunately, we had to lose a space shuttle for that to occur. I mean, then it's kind of like a bittersweet moment for me.